Hey Fools, Matt Copenheffer here with The Motley Fool. As part of our Ask a Fool series, Anthony posted a question to us on Facebook. Anthony writes, I'm primarily invested in regional banks. Given the changes that may or may not occur, is this a good place to be? No growth, great dividends so far. Thanks for the question, Anthony. And I will start out on a bit of a boring note here. Anthony notes that he is primarily invested in regional banks. Now, I don't have a view into his portfolio. That may mean his financial allocation is primarily regional banks, or it may mean that his overall allocation is primarily regional banks. And I do want to stress the idea of diversification here. I'm not a fan of putting a huge part of my portfolio into any one given area. So even though I do like regional banks, and we'll get into a little bit more of that, I wouldn't put an oversized part of my portfolio, say that my portfolio is primarily regional banks. Now, as far as the changes that Anthony's talking about, we've got a lot going on in the banking sector here. We've got those Dodd-Frank changes. We had stuff like the debit card transaction fee changes. We've got the Basel capital rules rolling through in the next few years. Should we be worried about these? Some of them, of course, will hurt the bank's bottom lines. We've seen that already. The debit card transaction fee was a big one. But overall, I think one of the things to take away is that regulators, while they want to make banks safer, they don't want to do damage to the economy. And we saw this recently with the Basel Committee walking back its capital rules just a little bit. Instead of requiring banks to be up to the new rules by 2015, they're saying that they only have to be at 60% by 2015. They allowed a little bit more leeway on lower rated and potentially higher yielding securities. So what does this tell me? This tells me that the regulators want to see banks healthy and safe, but also want to see growth from the economy and therefore growth from banks and the lending. So now when we look at regional banks in particular, do I like them? I think it's hard to say that as a blanket statement on the entire sector. What I will say is from a valuation perspective, the regional banks are a bit more expensive than the larger banks right now. I think the larger banks have been a lot more in the spotlight. We've heard about a lot of the problems in places like Bank of America, JP Morgan with its London whale trading scandal, and that's pushed down valuations for the larger banks. The smaller banks, meanwhile, have held on to higher valuations, so that impacts the returns that investors can expect from them going forward. Among the larger regional banks, there are some names in particular that I like. U.S. Bancorp, again, one of those highly valued regional banks, but I think this is a great business, a safe business. I think that investors can expect reasonable, good returns going forward. I don't see anything, outsized there, but I think it's a safe pick. Among a slightly smaller regional bank, New York Community Bancorp, that's another great pick. This goes to Anthony's question of when he's talking about no growth and great dividends. New York Community Bancorp pays out a huge dividend. Part of its sort of policy is that it's rather than trying to grow, it takes a lot of the cash that it earns and returns that to investors. So the bottom line on regional banks here, I think that investors can find good deals, can find great banks to invest in. I think they need to do their diligence, dig in, understand the bank that they're buying, and look for both quality, like a U.S. Bancorp or New York Community Bancorp, and then also look for the value there as well, because even the greatest bank that you can find is not a great investment at the wrong valuation. Again, this is Matt Copenheffer here with The Motley Fool, and you can always read more on Fool.com.